Hey, welcome back to Celtics Roundtable on the Boston Celtics newsfeed. We are powered by CLNS Radio. Matt Ignall here alongside my brother Jonathan, and we also are thrilled to be joined by Keith Smith. We are here to talk the Bulls series, which is beginning on Sunday evening. We'll talk some big picture stuff, matchups, schemes. Keith, you had Celtics in 5. Galabrini was confident as well. I just feel like the Bulls, because they have 1-2 crunch time scores that they can go to, and on top of that, they seem to play a lot better against quality teams than they do teams under 500. Is there any reason why you think that matters a little bit less than, I guess, the overall talent difference?
I don't think it's going to be like the last game we all remember was a Sunday afternoon. The Bulls didn't score for what felt like an hour or so, and the Celtics rolled right over them. I don't think it's going to be quite like that, but I think it's going to be more like that than the previous games in the series were. The reason for me is Chicago really beat Boston up on the boards in the first 3 games of this series. And then after Taj Gibson, who Boston just had no answer for inside, was traded away, the Celtics flipped it, and they actually beat Chicago up on the glass the last time they played. And as much as Jimmy Butler can be a handful to contain, as can Dwayne Wade at times, I don't feel like the Bulls have the players on the flip side that can match up with all of the different weapons the Celtics can put out there. So for me, it becomes, while the Bulls probably have the best player in the series in Jimmy Butler, maybe Isaiah Thomas depends. We'll have to see how well he does in the playoffs this year. Those two guys won 1A. Then it's a bunch of Celtics in a row that are going to probably be the next set of guys you would think of. And I think that's where the Boston depth will overcome anything Chicago can throw at them.
I guess part of me worries, we saw playoff Wade last year go off, particularly from the three-point line. I have no idea if he can replicate something like that. But then I also think, playoff Rondo, and Jimmy Butler's another guy who can get his own shot basically at any time. Like if it comes down to a close game, and the Celtics have had a ton of close games this year. In fact, the vast majority of them have been close games. I think that's really what's giving me pause here.
Matt, you're worried about playoff Rondo? I mean,
should I not be?
I don't think so. I know he's shooting 37% from 3, but he doesn't take many. I mean, this isn't the same guy that was in the Celtics uniform. I don't know. I mean, Jimmy Butler's obviously the guy that scares me. I just don't think they have enough punch. The problem that I see for the Celtics is that they have this way about them where they'll get a huge lead and then lose it. And in the playoffs, you can't play with your food, as Jaylen Brown says. So I'm a little concerned about that.
Yeah, that part concerns me as well. And it's one of those things where I tell people all the time, don't shut a Celtics game off if they're up 20 and just assume they're going to cruise to victory, because they just haven't. This year, the team lacks almost a killer instinct when they've got somebody down to really step on their throat and finish them off. So it'll be interesting to see. Rondo is one of those guys who's usually at his best when the lights are brightest, but he just wasn't good against Boston this year as far as doing it. He averaged 7 assists per game in the 4 games and a little over 6 rebounds, but only 4.5 points. Really shot terribly. So I'm not overly worried about him. And what I don't think Chicago has is the defensive ability to put someone on Isaiah Thomas and take him completely out of the game, which we've seen happen in some of the Celtics' tougher matchups. So I think Boston will ultimately be just fine, and they should get past the first round for the first time under Brad Stevens.
Yeah, I don't think Rondo's got any chance to guard Isaiah. Dwayne Wade certainly can. I mean, maybe they'll throw Jimmy Butler on him at times. I feel like they did that.
You remember in that second game, in the closing stages of that game, when Jimmy switched onto Isaiah, blocked his shot on a nice drive by IT. But Chicago's going to do whatever they can to get Isaiah Thomas on the other end switched onto Jimmy Butler, which is a fear of mine.
Yeah, that'll definitely be a way the Bulls will look to create some easy offense for themselves. But I think you touched on it a while ago. I don't think they have enough punch either. It's a lot of Jimmy Butler and then hope other guys are making shots. And we know what the Celtics will do is they're just going to sag off these guys. And if the Celtics lose a game or even lose a series and the Bulls shoot 45, 50% from 3, I think Boston will live with that and say, well, they beat us that way. There's, what are we going to do about it?
The chemistry is big for me too, because, the Celtics at some point probably in the series are going to be down, but they're a tight-knit unit and they have the ability to stick together and claw a win out. I don't know if I can say the same if I'm confident in Chicago's ability. They just don't get along, and when the going gets tough, who knows what will happen. I wouldn't be surprised if they folded.
Do you think that chemistry is like a real issue for Chicago headed into the playoffs, or is that, does that stuff dissolve after the regular season ends?
I do think there is something there with that. And what I almost find comical is the number of their fans that were upset that they made the playoffs. Right. They almost didn't want to go this year. I think they were hoping they would miss and they finally might move on from some of the guys in the front office and maybe Fred Hoiberg. And yet here they are in the playoffs. So I know I've heard from multiple Bulls fans, whether it be through Twitter or other places where it was, I just, we're just going to lose. I don't even care that we got another 4 or 5, maybe even 6 games. It doesn't matter. And it's just such a defeatist attitude. And that's what I think can help the Celtics is Chicago used to be an almost impossible place to go in and get a win. And now I think it's going to go in if they can get out to a lead, if they, for a change, could hang on to it. I think the crowd might turn on the Bulls and just be done.
What stands out to you as the Celtics' biggest advantage in the series?
Yeah, it's a combination of the depth in the way they have multiple players that they can throw at Jimmy Butler on the defensive end.
Right.
They'll probably go with either Jay Crowder or Avery Bradley to start. Then they'll bring in Smart. They'll put Jaylen Brown on him if they have to. If Butler starts going inside, they might even go to Gerald Green. Jonas Jerebko might get a little bit of time on him. And it's going to be just continually giving him different looks. And the Celtics have been at their best defensively when they've switched everything. And what they'll do, I think now, the difference between the regular season and the playoffs is in the regular season with a game at least every other night, sometimes back-to-back, you really have to put your system in, and then you run your system, whatever it is. In the playoffs, you can build a scheme because you know you're going to see a team at a minimum 4 times, probably 5 or 6. So I think what they'll do is, while Chicago may look to find ways to get Butler matched up with IT, I think the Celtics will find ways to take that away whenever it does happen. And they don't like to double a lot, but maybe they send doubles at them and those kind of things. And I think that's going to be their single biggest advantage is on the wing. They can throw so many guys at the Bulls' best player, and he's just not going to be able to get comfortable, I think, the entire series.
In the regular season, it seemed like Brad started with Jay, and obviously throughout the game, you switch it up, throw different guys on him. In I think it was the third game, he chose Marcus, who was tasked with the late game coverage of Jimmy, and he did really well except for that phantom foul call. They're going to throw a bunch of dudes at him, but in a crunch time scenario, who do you think Brad's going to go with?
Wouldn't surprise me if it's Marcus Smart, because we know he'll be on the floor. They've actually, what I like to call the IT and D lineup, they have played quite well with that. Since everyone's been healthy down the stretch here, it's done much better than it did earlier. I think Brad Stevens is going to go to it quite a bit in the playoffs if necessary. And I think in those situations, Crowder obviously moves up, so he'll be playing whoever Chicago has at the big forward spot. So then I think you'll see Smart, probably a mix of Smart and Bradley will get him down the stretch. It'll probably also depend who the Bulls have on the floor with Butler. If Wade's out there, Bradley has a history of playing Dwayne Wade very tough. So I think Bradley will be there, and then probably does fall to Marcus Smart.
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense for sure. Yeah, I mean, I worry about Bradley on Butler because of the strength difference and the way that he could bully his way to the rim. Yeah, Smart makes a lot of sense there. All right, the playoffs are here, and if you want to get tickets to Celtics playoff games, perhaps that Bulls series, be sure to download the SeatGeek ticketing app, which is the easiest way to buy and sell tickets to Celtics games. With just 2 taps using SeatGeek's seamless mobile experience, in mere seconds you can buy and sell tickets. It doesn't end with the Celtics or any other NBA game. SeatGeek also has plenty of concert, comedy, and theater tickets available too, and it's all fully guaranteed. Listeners to CLNS Radio can support this production and get a $20 rebate off their first SeatGeek purchase. Here's how. You download the free SeatGeek app, then go to the Settings tab and click Add a Promo Code. Then enter the promo code CELTSNEWS, all one word, and SeatGeek will send you $20 after you've made your first ticket purchase. Download the free SeatGeek app and enter the promo code CELTSNEWS today. What do you think the Bulls' biggest advantage might be in this series?
They have Jimmy Butler. He has the ability to win a couple games by himself.
He definitely can win a game or two all by himself without a lot of problem. We've already seen him do it against the Celtics. I also think that the Bulls can throw a number of big men at Boston, even without Taj Gibson available. They still got Lopez and Mirotic, and they have Bobby Portis off the bench, and Cristiano Felicio and Joffrey Laverne, all different kinds of big guys. Boston's going to need big efforts out of Kelly Olynyk, Jerebko, and then even Tyler Zeller if called upon, because I think we will see Zeller at some point in the series just because of the both size, especially Portis. Portis is like one of those relentless rebounders, and those guys have given the Celtics a lot of problems this year. Those guys who just go after it repeatedly on both ends and don't worry about fouls, and they're going to crash the boards and hit the boards hard. Those are the players that the Celtics have struggled with. And that's what Portis is, especially Felicio a little bit less so, but still in a similar type mold. But they're not Taj Gibson, so I think the Celtics will be okay.
Yeah, so second unit offense has just kind of been a key theme. When Isaiah Thomas sits, we know their offensive rating plummets. Do you see like Brad Stevens like invoking any other special lineups for when Isaiah Thomas is not on the floor, or any original ways to get some scoring punch using that bench when Isaiah Thomas isn't on the floor?
There's definitely two things that happen that I think we'll see in the playoffs. The first is I think Thomas and Horford will stagger a little bit more. I think we'll see one of the two on the floor quite a bit throughout the playoffs. I don't think we're going to see a lot of time where they're both off the floor. And then because everything slows down so much in the playoffs, I think we will see the Celtics run. It's not that the second unit offense doesn't run plays, but I think they'll be very deliberate with who they're looking to get the ball to try and score. In a regular season environment, you just don't have the practice time to change it up. In the playoffs, we're only playing every other day at most. You know you're playing the same team. You can put in some certain sets that you think will work, that you've had success with, and I think we'll see a lot of that with the second unit to put the ball in the right player's hands versus just kind of that free-flowing and see what happens.
That's interesting that you say that, like, because that second unit doesn't have too many natural scorers on it unless you want to include like Gerald Green in there. And we've talked about like what sort of rotation Brad Stevens is going to put out there in the playoffs, and I don't see any indication that he's going to shorten the rotation by that much. That Terry Rozier's almost out of the rotation already. He's played Tyler Zeller a fair amount down the stretch, Gerald Green as well. Do you expect those guys to get continued run? Do you expect them to have plays called for them?
I don't know about plays called for them, maybe. One thing that is funny is Rozier, and I'm with you, and I've been kind of a Rozier detractor all year long, and he's somebody that I had higher hopes for. But he's actually played fairly well against Chicago. So he averaged 8 points per game in the 4 games this year against the Bulls. So we might.
So we're going to see an 11, 12-man rotation still?
Yeah, I don't think so. I mean, maybe. I think what we'll see is I don't know that we're going to see the same 8 or 9 guys every game. I think that's where it'll get mixed up. I think he will stick to 8 or 9. We know who the top 8 are. It's 5 starters, then Smart, Olynyk, and Brown. And then I think the extra guy if they does go to 10, I don't think we're going to see the 11 and 12 guys per game. But I think we might see one night it's Jerebko, and then the next night it's Zeller. Maybe it's Rozier a game, and then Gerald Green a game. It's really going to be what does that individual game call for?
With Kelly's inconsistencies, I wouldn't be surprised. Brad's done it all year. If Kelly's not, if he doesn't come to play, I wouldn't be surprised if he throws Jonas or Tyler in there early and often.
Yep, I completely agree.
We want to thank Keith Smith for coming on and let him talk about his new venture. Go ahead.
Yeah, thanks for having me, guys. I really appreciate it. It's always fun to talk to Celtics. The new show that I'm going to be a part of is part of the Almighty Baller Radio Network. We're calling it NBA Front Office, and what we're going to do to keep it real high level and quick, we're going to spend a lot of time on roster building, transactions, how GMs and scouts do their jobs, what it's like to work in a front office, and then break down a lot of those moves that we like to talk about. And we're going to do it all the way from the biggest free agent signings and trades all the way down to 10-day contracts, really get into that nitty-gritty about roster building that I know a lot of people out there really love and feel like doesn't get talked quite enough. So that's what the show is going to be, hopefully starting up in a couple of weeks. So check that out. You can watch my Twitter account. I'll obviously be tweeting it from there when we are ready to go. All
right, that's going to do it here at Celtics Roundtable. We're going to have Keith Smith back on again tomorrow talking a little bit more about schemes and sets and all that stuff. So definitely tune in for that. Check out this feed, the Boston Celtics news feed on CLNS, where you can find exclusive audio with 2016 Celtics first-rounder Guerjan Yabusele. Check the news feed for Corey Prescott's sit-down interview with the intriguing French forward known affectionately as the Dancing Bear, as he and Boston's D-League affiliate, the Maine Red Claws, make their postseason run.